So, anyways, I don't know if I ever prayed more in my entire life than those 4 days when I was getting ready. But then as I stood up to testify before Father, I realized I wasn't so nervous or scared anymore. I realized I have the opportunity to speak directly, eye to eye, to tell Father. And I was supposed to, so I started the testimony. I told him everything. I had a long-term seduced pedophile homosexual relationship in my early life. I became an alcoholic and drug addict. I was like one of those hippies that you talked about so many times. I said, but Father, you saved my life. You saved me. This is after I knew about the prayer and all this. I said, Father, only because of you, you saved my life. 100%, no shadow of a doubt in my mind. You are the second coming of Jesus Christ. You are Christ. You are Christ. You've saved my life through the divine principle, through unification thought, and through your guidance to my life. I am alive today. If not, I wouldn't be here. So I testified to that, and I was just so liberated because I could. He was about as close to me as Doug was, and I said, I don't care what he does. I'm going to tell him this whole testimony, eye to eye. And he kept going like, tell these guys over here. And I didn't know it at the time. He wanted them to think about what I was saying, obviously, because they don't believe. Yeah, all the top Koreans in the world were there. And he's like, they got to know what you're saying. So anyways, he keeps going like that, but I would turn, but I would look right. I said, this is one chance and for eternity. I'm going to tell Father eyeball to eyeball. And actually he didn't look away. He looked. We maintained eye contact for this, whatever it was, 10-15 minutes. And it was so incredible. And a couple nights later, he was speaking late into the night, and I got another little prep. I'll wait a minute to pass that out. But I had two more amazing experiences after that. One was, the first one was that Father was speaking very late, and all of a sudden, God showed me Father's Spirit. God showed me Father's Spirit. He's there in front of us all, and all of a sudden, I was a welder, right? I did a lot of welding before the church, and all of a sudden, Father's eyes were as bright as welding flash. It's like looking straight into the sun, right, Doug? You look into a welding flash for a little while, and it's burning your freaking eyeballs out. So I'm looking at Father's face, and his eyes sockets are beaming out this light as bright as the sun, but it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. And this went on for maybe 5 minutes or more solid. Father was speaking, and this brilliant light was shining from his eyes. And it went on for the longest time, and I just felt so filled with God's love. It was you can't imagine, unimaginable experience. But went on for a long time. And he was just speaking as normal. But God, God, out of His grace, gave me that experience. I actually shared it with the second king one time. He said, he just went, he says, yeah, I've seen that. He was like, so, yeah. And then the next thing was I really want to share and emphasize this one little experience. Now here he's talking to the top. These are the top leaders in the world, right? And this was in 92 or 3, something like that. And he said, the time will come. Oh, he prefaced it. Before he said that, he said, every time I give the blessing, Satan just comes right in my face and he mocks me. He said, go ahead, give him your blessing. I don't care, because I'm going to take him right back with my secret weapons. And so Father said, and he said, and so every one of you, when Satan tries to take you back to his lineage, every one of you will be deceived. He's pointing at all of us. He's pointing, you will all be deceived. But he said, when you realize you've been deceived, and you realize that you've been taken away from Father, he said that you repent. Just first thing you got to do, you repent to God. And the second thing you got to do is cling on to me for your life. He said, only my foundation cannot be invaded by Satan. Only my foundation. So cling on to me with your life. These are the top leaders. This is regardless. Anyways, this was in 94. So he gave us this warning, and then he said, the next thing he said was so profound. Well, first I'll say what it was. He said, once you've reunited with me, when you're under my love, under my authority, he said, then you go to God and you say this prayer to God. God, thank you for allowing your servant, the archangel, to teach me the lesson of uniting with your lineage. He said, thank you. He said, so you go to God. You tell God, thank you, God. Your servant that you created to serve me, he's educating me to unite with your lineage. He's raised you up. And at the time, it was really profound, and it made a deep impact on me, and I did really carry that, and I began to pray like that when I would get in, Satan would invade in some way or another, and I began to practice that. Did anybody ever hear that before? All the top leadership. Well, maybe from me. Yeah, you might have heard it from me. Was it in World Today? What was it in Unification News? He told all those people to do that. He gave a very important guidance of our spiritual life.
And they didn't pass it on.
I never heard it from anybody. But I embraced it. I realized this has got some very important significance. But I didn't realize so clearly the importance of it until just quite recently, and I'll share that with you. But anyways, after on the last night of the meeting, we had this had a photo op with Father, and so all these people are standing around him, and I'm in a group of this 15 or so Western people, and they're starting to line us up for to take the picture. Well, Father, I was kind of far away. Father comes over, he just grabs me by my shirt and drags me, and he's standing here. He says, "You stand." So that's where I stood. But Father brought me there, and he wanted me to stand next to him. And I thought, maybe because of my testimony, what I shared. I don't know. I didn't know why so much at the time. But yeah, it was very profound. But then later, I don't know, I'm getting out of my order here, but it doesn't matter. Later on, about 2003 or so, Father was in Korea, but he came back. And when he was working on his autobiography, right? He was working on his autobiography at that time. And a lot of times when Father's doing something, he'll ask everybody to join, and to do the thing together with him in one way or another. And I was in East Garden, big packed out room. I was about 2/3 of the way back. And Father went for about a half an hour straight saying, the world doesn't know who I am. All they know is what they read in the New York Times or the Los Angeles Times, all the communist propaganda media. He said, but you people, you know who I am. You know who I am. He said, why don't you write your story? Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write your testimony and tell the world? You have to tell the world who I am, who I really am. Right? So he's talking like this for maybe half an hour. And this is maybe 10 years after Kodiak, right? But he's up there, and all of a sudden he just stops. He stops speaking, and he starts looking at the crowd. And he's looking around. Again, I'm sitting like 2/3 of the way. He's looking around. And then he spots me sitting back there. And he's like, phew, arrow right there, right in my eyeballs. He's like looking straight into my heart. And after he's saying, you got to tell who I am, right? Well, I told him in Kodiak, So anyway, so he's looking straight at me, and I'm like, oh my God, And he didn't look away. He kept looking for, it seemed like forever. It was maybe 5 to 10 seconds, but he didn't say a word. He's just looking at me, and I go like, he's waiting for me to do something. And so in my mind, I said to him, yes, Father, I'll do it. And then he's back to his speech. So anyways, that was the impetus why I decided I would write my autobiography. So I did. I wrote the book. It took a long time, published in 2010, and it was a testimony to why Father is the Messiah and how he, kind of like what I've been sharing, this kind of stuff. So, yeah, Father, anyways, can't say it enough. He is God in the body, in the flesh. So, in 1994, we got a call from Mark Dragano, Lisa's friend, and he was at New Hope Farms. So he's at New Hope Farms, and so we got a call, and a request was coming from East Garden for Lisa to come back to the horse farm and to manage the horse farm. Of course, they had all of our, early on. Remember, we would write down our skills, all of our background. So they pulled my name out of the file, and they said, "Oh, I grew up on a farm. I knew." I grew up on a farm. I knew I was a painter. I knew I had all these mechanical skill set, and so they said, "Oh, that couple's got to come here," right? So they notified me to come, Lisa and myself to come. So we came then to New Hope Farms. It was a real battle getting away from Reverend Wu. It was like, oh my God! But here was the trump card. I knew that Anjan's husband had come there and directly told him that he has to let me go. The only way he could not let me go is if I said I didn't want to go. He knew that. So we had a 2-day meeting, our normal state leaders meeting, and the whole 2 days he was beating the hell out of me. Don't go, what's wrong with you? You're a governor, you got to be a governor, you got to be, part of the caste system. He pulled all that caste system bullcrap on me, and I said, no, your father, go and take care of Father's family and his property, or stay here under the frickin' tyrant. Like, no. So finally at midnight on the second day of the meeting, he gets us all up in the prayer room, and he's praying, long prayer, why Lowell has to stay here. And then he says, "Okay, Lowell, what's your decision?" I said, "We're going to New Hope Farms." See ya. So we take off and we go there. And so that started a new chapter. And then we were around, of course, Anjan was there all the time, and we met some of the other true children were there. So that could be a whole couple hours in itself. I mean, there's so much was going on there. But the one thing I will say about it is that everything that was in Lisa's heart, this was her mission. This was really from God and from Father. To everything we were doing there is exactly what Second King is doing now, in raising us up in nature, building our relationship with God through unlocking our epigenetics. Teach a kid to ride, teach a kid to shoot a gun, teach a kid to go out in the forest, go out and we'd go swimming in the river, we'd do all these outdoors activities. And Lisa would always say, we don't learn divine principle just behind a chalkboard, we learn it by meeting God where he is in nature, with the horses and all that. So we were so absolutely fortunate to spend we were there for 20 years. But another interesting side of it, and now, of course, at the time we thought it was a dark side of it, and now it's been confirmed after what happened with, after Mother's betrayal, absolutely was a dark side, is that Peter Kim was a frickin', he was a thief, and he was absolutely against Father way back then, even then. A short story would be that Father built this place to be an incredible equestrian business. It was the best equestrian facility in America. That arena at that time was the biggest indoor arena in the country. And Father, when he had the first Autumn Classic, he said, we gotta raise the bar for the horse show world. I'm going to give away $100,000 at the Grand Prix. So that advertising went around America. Grand Prix were usually $10,000, $15,000 maybe in prize money. Bam! Everyone's New Hope Farms Autumn Classic, $100,000 Grand Prix. The best riders in the whole country. came in, they wanted to compete on that level, and it was an Olympic level course, and every square inch of that property was like shining gem and a jewel. It was so beautiful. And so after the show, or it wasn't even after the show, the entire show, these top level riders, multimillionaire people, Olympic competitors were there, and they said, we want to come here, we want to train in this facility. This facility is the best in America. We want to board our horses here. We had 100 stalls, empty stalls. They said, we want to come here, we want to train out of here. What does Peter Kim do? What's his answer? He says, oh, this is just a private facility, it's only for training the Moon's children, River Moon's children. He turned away multi-millionaires knocking down the dang door to come in there and rent out these stalls. We could have charged them, sky's the limit, $5,000 a month, no problem. 100 stalls at $5,000, but that's just the beginning. You know what happens once they're in there? They want to buy horses. Lisa was in a meeting when Father was saying, we need to go down to South America. He'd heard from Hyunjin and Unjin, thoroughbreds in South America. They have some of the best thoroughbreds in the world down there. It's a horse culture. They said we could go down there, you could buy a good horse. Of course, Hyunjin would go down there, or people that knew what they were looking at go down there, or Lisa would go down there. You buy a horse for $1,000 or $2, you bring it up here, you train it on the American show circuit, and then you sell it for $80,000, $100,000 in 6 months of training. That was Father's vision. That he said those words directly. He said, we should sell 1,000 horses a year out of here. Peter Kim was sitting right there, that asshole. He was sitting right there. You know that's what Father wanted to do. So here's Peter Kim telling these Olympic riders, oh, go away. We're not allowing anybody but anybody to board here. Like, what the hell? We just spent $6 million building the best facility in the frickin' country, and you got hundreds of multimillionaires there beating the door down. Let us come in. Thank you, Peter Kim, you piece of shit. Turn them all away. And that went on for 3 to 4 years. They kept, until the whole country knew, oh yeah, New Hope Farms is a great place to come and show. You might get a lot of show money, but don't ask to train there because they're not going to let anybody in. You know why? He wanted to sell the dang place. He just was looking, he thought it was a great big personal plum that he could sell when the time is right and pocket $10, $12 million. Piece of crap. He didn't care about Father's vision. Could you imagine we had some of the most influential people in the country riding there, calling it their home. Oh, Reverend Moon, yeah, he's fantastic. We boarded with him. It would have been just a natural witnessing on the highest level. The highest level. Mayor Bloomberg's we got a call from Bloomberg. His daughter was running the Grand Prix. You got a place out there? We could land a helicopter. Mayor Bloomberg wants to come and see his daughter ride. No, sorry, we don't have room for it. And change. It didn't happen. So it just didn't happen. But I lay that all at the feet of Peter Kim. That son of a bitch. You want to know what I really feel? It can't go on the recording. Just use your imagination. So okay, here's what caps it. At 4 years after the place opened, he tells Mark Dragon, okay, put it on the market. We put it out on the market. Father finds out it's on the market. He explodes. I wasn't at the meeting. Mark was at the meeting. He spent about a half an hour roasting Peter Kim, burned his face off with rage that he was so opposite of Father's plan in his direction for that place. So he burned his face off. And so what happens right after the meeting? So Peter Kim comes up to Mark after Father left the room. They go out in the hallway, and Peter Kim says to Mark, Father's too hot about this right now. We'll wait 2-3 years for him to cool off and forget about it. Then we'll put it back on the market again. On a dirtbag. And that's exactly what he did.
Let the place run down.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to come there anymore anyway.
Yeah, it did start going downhill in time because he didn't give us a dang budget. Lisa put together an incredible proposal. We wanted to advertise on WABC. We wanted to advertise around. This was after the Autumn Classic was even over, but we knew that we have a gem here. We can build this business up. He wouldn't give us a 2 cents for advertising. Would you run a business without spending a dime on advertising? You can't do it. He refused it. And so, anyways, Lisa and I were constantly praying that all of his plans would fall through. So, for the realtors to show the place, you can relate to this, Neil. Realtors would come in with a customer, a client, and show. Well, I would walk around together with them. So when I was kind of like in private, I was going like, yeah, it's nice, but there's a big issue with the roof. By the way, the taxes are like really high here. So like I'm praying, Lisa's back in the house praying, make this thing fall through. I was like, we walk. So yeah, if it floods if the river comes up this whole back parking lot is underwater. So I did that for years. What's that? Did you bring? I don't know. You might have brought. What's it? He's recording. Oh,
That's okay.
no problem. I don't care. Peter Kim doesn't like it. He can kiss my grits. So, anyways, long story short, Cookchin came in about 2010 or 11, and he wanted to expand. His gun business was getting so big. They're always in back order, so he knows I've got to expand. So he knew about the shooting range in the basement. He thought, oh God, that would work for a factory. I could put the factory right there. So he came in 2011. I think it was 2011, and he started putting the wheels in motion. He had engineers come in and drop plans to convert the whole thing, and but it was very profound that right away the first meeting we had with him, and every additional meeting he told us about what's really going on in Korea. From the very first time we spoke with him, he said, Mother ate the apple. Mother ate the frickin' apple. She's gone. She's fallen. So we were like, oh my God, we were kind of a little bit shocked, but on the other side I was going to share some stories about her too, but I won't go into it. I was not surprised, one iota. Everybody that's enamored of her doesn't know her. She was a cold-hearted, I won't say the word, you know the next word. She was a cold-hearted.
With Kitty's Garden was the Ice Queen.
The Ice Queen, yeah. That's her to a T. She was not a true mother. I'll say that on the film. She was not a true mother. Look at her own children. She didn't give two craps about her own kids. All she cared about was money and power and prestige. I used to call her Hollywood Hakshahan, because she was not. So Cookchin came and was explaining, giving us a lot of detail about what was going on. She's betraying father and all that, and we could certainly understand that.
2011?
Yeah, it was, the writing was on the wall early on. Well, Father knew it in 1993. I heard it in Kodiak directly. I just didn't know. I shared that story about Kodiak and Father talking about Satan's secret weapon. Cookchin didn't wait a split second. He's like, yeah, who would ever dream? Hakshahan's the secret weapon of Satan. That was his instant reply to that. And Father, yeah, so anyways, so Cookchin came, and Second King, quite a while after, also came up, and I met him. He's shared a few times. We were sitting around a campfire at New Hope, and this was before Father passed, but he was there, and I met with him then. I'd met him once earlier, way earlier. He came up with the Anonym when the kids were just infants, when Shimpal and Shaman were just maybe 1.5, 2 years old, and whatever that was, or a year between, I think. Anyways, they were just like little infants. So yeah. So when everything finally came apart, and And I guess everybody already knows the story why New Hope Farms wasn't used for the factory, the safe law pack, safe act, and all of a sudden most of car products were illegal in New York. So Cookson came then to Pennsylvania. That was really the hand of God to come over here to Pennsylvania. Yeah, much. Yeah. Yeah. So when the second king came, I was so amazed. I was just like, well, I knew obviously that he was crowned because Lisa and I were attendants at the event at the Manhattan Center. We were actually attendants for the crowning ceremony. So we had no doubt in our mind that he was the heir and successor. I don't know what the hell was going on with all the rest of the people that were in the room. There had to been 2,000-3,000 people in the room saw the same thing. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. Yeah, but then second king came, and he came quite a lot to New Hope right at first. Of course, he was just coming to grips with the whole thing, the whole phenomena. That would have been 2012, at the autumn of 2012 probably. And then beginning of 2013, he started bringing the kids to cut the grass. He talks about this sometimes. Yeah, my kids go out and work cutting grass and stuff like that for $1 an hour. And yeah, well, that was over at New Hope. And Yana and Yanun actually rode. They came and they were riding with Lisa for a while. And so it was just so such a blessing, you know. And as soon as the moment we met Hyunchanem, it's like for both Mommy and me, the total reality. This is Father's body. He is Father's heir. No question. Nothing else in the world matters. This is Father. If we love Father, we attend Father. We must love Him and attend Him even more than we loved and attended to Father, because we were so sympathetic. We look, what a crappy deal. What they did him really wrong. They did him so wrong. And when you're sitting there and you're talking with him, and he's the kindest, most loving person in the world, with all that crap piled on his head, and just somehow standing up, loving Father. That's all he did. He just wanted to love Father. You'll remember those years, searching for Father, right? Chasing after Father, coming to, and Greg and I, we went and did the camping in the first winter. I went and I took a knife and carved in those trees. Remember that night we stayed over at Cookson's property, and it was like the wind was howling all night long, and it was like I think that was a -20 night or something. So I put the date in a tree with a knife, so just to remember. But yeah, we were so blessed and so fortunate to spend those days and weeks and months, and you know. But what I was going to say, when he first started his message, for me the first really strong message was that Father hates the caste society. We have to break down the caste system of the Unification Church. All of this structured caste system, I hated it. I was in it. We were all in it, a certain degree. We were just the peons down here, and then there were the leaders, and then the guys that when there was an event, they would go behind the velvet rope, and they would have the steak dinner, and we'd be back here with the rice balls. Well, actually, I was on the steak dinner side for a lot of that time, but I felt terrible, because you know what these assholes would say to Father, and when they give the reports? Oh yeah, I brought these many people. You didn't bring crap. You sat in your damn office. It's those brothers and sisters back there with the rice balls that made this event. I could never stomach that crap. What a bunch of liars. And then they're up there talking to Colonel Hahn or Dr. Pock. Oh yeah, my members you didn't. Anyways, they were there, but they sure couldn't claim credit, in my mind. So here's Hyunchanem destroying that, trashing that whole system down. He said, we're all in the blood lineage. Our relationship with Father is in the lineage. And we're all equal in Father's sight. And those guys received incredible love from Father, and they didn't pass it down to you guys, to the members. And that was their sin and their crime. Anyway, so So obviously, I do have one more thing to share because I think it's really important. So I have a different mission now, pioneering a new experience. Mommy went to heaven. So shortly after Mommy passed, I was struggling. I went through just such a roller coaster. God bless Herwig, had the HSU class for people that are widowers and widowers. So the course of grief, I won't talk about it too much. We'll all experience it when we lose one we loved, and it's just it just is what it is. But it's not permanent, is it, Herwig? It's a temporary course, and if we go through it with the proper heart and the proper way, we come out the other side, and we have a full, rich, wonderful life with God, and God has His plans for us as we go on. So I wanted to share something that from after Mommy passed. I'd been going through an awful lot, and as you can imagine. And at one point, I had this is a long story, and I'm not going to go into it all, but due to the nature of our unique situation, restoring racism, I had a lot in my heart, a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, I guess I could say, that was tormenting me, and various different things. So I went and asked the king if I could talk to him one day, and I went and I spent. So part of it, I had this kind of like frustration. Lisa did nothing wrong. There was nothing there. But Satan, of course, is an expert at trying to divide people, create imaginary scenarios based on half-truths and illusions that may be plausible. Right? We know that's what the devil does, right? He creates these kind of scenarios that may be plausible a little bit, and just enough to trick us if we're sad or in a low spiritual state. So I had this crap Satan had been dumping on me for our whole life together, and it's related. I think it's related to that indemnity course. So I unloaded my heart to the king, and after it was over, he just smiled and said, "I thought there was some problem here." He said, "There's nothing wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. Did you? You know?" And it was all the crap that Satan was lying to me about her, but then he went into an incredible internal guidance. And he spoke deeply about, he said, your relationship with Lisa, it's not over. Even he was speaking then about your absolute sex life. He said, God doesn't want you to become a monk. That's not part of God's plan. God's not. He said, you need to practice. And he used the word practice. And when the king talks about practice, I know how he's speaking. They practice jujitsu. They practice various things. It means you make an effort when you're ignorant about something, but you begin to make effort, and you practice, and you learn through that practice. So when he used that word practice, it really perked up my ears, because here I'm grappling with, okay, well, what's my life now? You know, now I know where Mommy is, I know where her body is, and I know where her spirit is, but I'm here in this room by myself alone now. All right? But he said you have to practice your absolute sex life. And so this put me on a different train of thought, because I had been thinking, okay, I'm back to life of cold showers and and beating myself up and denial. And then as I began to pray about this, I did so many prayer conditions. I did prayer condition after prayer condition about this topic. And then I began to realize, what is the meaning of for example, okay, I'm straying from my notes here, but I'll just speak from the heart. What's the meaning of that diagram we saw when we first listened to the divine principle? We have that, what is this four-position foundation? It's God's up here, and the man's here, and we got the nice yin-yang mark there, and then it's a perfect couple, perfect person down there. What is that point? What is that? What does that represent? Well, I know Mommy's body died, and my body's now struggling, but we weren't just a body. Was our life together, was our love together just the functions of bodies? No, of course not. It was a spiritual function. When we're in love, when we're making love with our spouse, is this a physical experience, or is this an experience of the soul? And I realized through our 40 years together, through hundreds, I know I didn't keep a log, I didn't keep a record, maybe thousands, I'd like to think thousands, I don't know, is thousands reasonable? Maybe, I don't know. But every time we made love, it was like a knot in a tapestry. It was a knot tying our souls together and our life together, made a beautiful tapestry. Think about it, what you're doing together as a husband and wife. You're becoming divine spirits. We're becoming divine spirits. So when we heard that first Divine Principle lecture, we're going through these stages of growth. Well, Satan invaded at the top of the growth stage. Well, we're blown past that. We've received not only the blessing, we've received the Book of Life blessing. We've received the perfection stage blessing. We are, in God's eyes, we're the divine spirits who are not the product of the fall. That's my understanding of it. Isn't that the understanding? That's what the Book of Life in Revelations means. And there's so many scriptures. In 2 Timothy is a beautiful one. It said that God has called us to an anointing that He had prepared before He created. And that we receive that as a grace. It's 2 Timothy 1:9. And so then I had to realize that God is expecting us to have a divine. We're not the dead after the fall. I have a divine spirit. Mommy's got a divine spirit. She's in the spirit world. I'm here. Doesn't matter. So our love binds us together. That doesn't stop. I had to stop and think, oh, I'm missing her. I'm missing her terribly. I'm missing her like, I can't believe how much I'm missing her. Well, what's her situation? And if we use the baseline of when we're having our absolute sex life, that what happens? Father I heard in a workshop early on an incredible explanation. I haven't heard too many people use this explanation, but if you go back to that yin-yang diagram, we know we have the arrows there between the two, right? The husband's living for his wife, loving his wife. The other arrow is the wife's living for the husband in the ideal. Living for the... Well, Father used the explanation of a gyroscope in this explanation. When a gyroscope starts to spin, when you're making love with your wife, you're living for each other. Bam, the energy is spinning faster and faster and faster and faster. Well, what happens when the gyroscope really takes off and it's really spinning? There becomes a vertical axis. There becomes a vertical axis, and that vertical axis goes straight up to God. And God's energy comes down, and it enters you, and it enters your spouse. And it's spinning and spinning and spinning. And the vertical axis doesn't stop there. It goes down below. The axis goes below as well. That's the perfected individual. That was God's purpose of creation. But what's spinning is it's a function of the Spirit. Because I think we're all married people here. Not foreign to say, when you make love with your spouse, afterwards, you've spent all your love, all of your energy, and you're out there in the stars, right? Bam, you're in the afterglow. You're just out there with God. You're like, oh, and then there's that like half an hour or so, you're just silly with this incredible emotion of love and joy. You're just like there, and God is there, and you're there with God in the ether, in the beauty of your love. That was God's purpose of creation. So I really repented that I'm not thinking that God, and then I realized this is what Hyunjin's talking about. We have to practice absolute sex. And it's common, and it's been known since the dawn of time, that spirits can come into your body. right? So you might think, okay, well, I imagine every one of you have probably stopped and pondered, well, what's really going on there when you're there and your spirit's, wife's in the spirit world, and how does that work? It's simple. It's not so weird. It's just very simple. First of all, Father said that our sexual organ doesn't belong to us. It belongs to our spouse. I'm carrying her sexual organ around. We have all of our life. She's carrying yours. You're carrying hers, right? Well, she's a spirit. She will come in. Our bodies. She just comes into my body. When she comes. Actually, let me share this little story. She said, I got a text from the king one day. He said, Tell Lisa she doesn't have to come to the palace to do overnight security. We're just fine. Tell her to come home because your man wants you home, okay? So I have a prayer. So I received that. I go like, really? Thank you, King. That's absolutely right. So I pray, Mommy, stop going to the palace at night. I want you home, dear. So she came home that night, and we were in the cosmos in the most incredible lovemaking, wonderful experience. And when it happens, this might sound weird, it might not. We know forever spirits will come into a person, and Satan has controlled that phenomena. It's God's phenomena, dang it. Lisa comes into my body. I feel her there. If I go like this, it's her hand. I know the feel of her hand. I felt her hand on my face. I felt her hand on my body 1,000,000 times, and she's felt mine. And her spirit is in my body. Thank you, Mommy. It's home. Stay there. No, this is what God designed. What does it mean we became dead after the fall? There should have never been separation. Right? Should have never been. This is a result of the fall. So in this, I told Cooksha was asking me about this one time. I said, yeah, Lisa visits me time to time. I said, God didn't make a shitty plan, Cooksha. God made a good plan. It's a shitty plan. If the spouse dies and we, bam, it's over. Wait, we were trying to build this relationship. Now she's, bam. It's not a shitty plan. And God's heart is liberated. And then, so it's very real, and it's not weird, I tell you. But you have to, it just like everything else, if you have faith and you act and practice, because something amazing happens, and it's way beyond just the sexual. It's amazing, but it's way beyond. And it's about growing in our divine spirit, and where we have deep communication about everyday stuff, or about wild stuff, or anything. Could be anything. I'll share one more story, and I'm about to wrap it up, but I do have one more big point that I want to bring up after this, is that, if you're going to the church over the years, there was that liberating, one of the first spiritual healings that the king did was he liberated me from a spirit of suicide. And that was connected to this internal battle of restoration of white-black issues. So he liberated me from that spirit. And that had been on me. That spirit had been there for a long time, maybe 5 or 6 years or more. It kind of really culminated around the time that Hyunjanim did that liberation for me. But throughout that time period, I kept having this recurring terrible dream. And in the dream, the dream is that I had gone to the spirit world, and I would be in spirit world in some big highly populated area, like maybe downtown Seoul or something. And I would think that, I know how to get to my home, but I'm all alone. I'm all alone, but in various different circumstances. A couple of times it was like being in a big city, and I'm like starting to panic. I'm here, and there's all these people here, and I know my house is right up the street. I want to go home. And I would start going the direction I thought the house was, and I would just get more lost and more lost and more lost. And this dream would come over the course of 5 or 6 years, would come back to me, and it's like, God, why? I thought I'll go to heaven and I'll be with you and I'll be with my loved ones, but I keep having this dream that I'm just lost and I'm wandering. So this was maybe, I don't know what, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I had this dream. It came back again. And this time I said, Mommy, you got to help me out. And I'd never told her about this, but I told her about this dream. I said, Mommy, why does God continually give me this terrible nightmare? And she said, honey, that's what happens if you commit suicide. And I go like, holy crap, because that spirit of suicide had been there on me for years and years. And God was trying to warn me, don't do that. And then I said, oh wow. And then a little later I was praying and talking to her again. I said, honey, you going to be there when I go to prayer? She said, don't worry, I'll be right there.